Order. Oh, sorry, Angie.
He wants to be done
every
at
time.
7:30 like me.
Every time.
That's at 7:30.
Thank you. Call the meeting to order at 7:01 on Monday, August 21st, the year 2023. We have some consent agenda items that include minutes from the August 7th school board meeting. We have some professional staffing recommendations. And we also have some personnel items, that require no vote. So I would look for a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
I move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you,
And I will
Tom.
second that.
Thank you, Bruce. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, moving on, we have informational items, Student Community Member Mentor Program. Mr. Bartman from Indian Mound Middle School will join us.
It looks like Mr. Bartman is not here, and we haven't heard anything. I know Angie reached out to him last week, and he was planning
Oh, he
to
was
be
planning
here.
on attending in
Yes,
person?
yes, so something must have come up.
Okay,
So we will table that and reschedule it.
we'll follow up on that. We certainly enjoy hearing from
Guess we get
Fred.
closer to that 7:30 goal. of course.
Yeah.
Maybe he's trying to find a parking space out there.
Yeah.
discussion items, board meetings, self-review results. Mr. Tarnitzer, the floor is yours.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And I will share my screen eventually. Yes, there's that. So, this is a follow-up to, this is the first time we've ever done this as a board. Thank you to all 5 board members for filling out your self-assessment about board meetings. So the purpose of this, using this tool, is to help us be as efficient as possible in our board meetings and make sure that we address the priorities of the district. And so what I did was I took the feedback that you had provided and identified a few themes that I'm going to share with you and welcome your questions and discussions as we go through here today. The plan is to do this, this routinely so that we are able to compare our results, set some goals, and the board can celebrate the progress that is made. So I am going to share my screen so that the public will be able to see that. Okay. So this is what you have in front of you. I'm going to highlight, just start off with some of the strengths that you shared. And I'm not going to get into many of the details, but welcome your questions, and you have other information there as well. But one of the strengths that was identified was the agenda is being provided in a timely fashion so that the board has a chance to familiarize yourself with the items prior to the meeting. Also, the packets being very focused on providing facts and data and provided in a timely fashion. That was another strength you identified. And I should mention, strengths was if there were 80% or more indicating that this was fully achieved, which is the highest rating. I just picked that somewhat arbitrarily, but I felt like that was a really strong indicator. 4 out of 5 members said that we're at the top level. Administrators coming prepared to address the topic was another thing, and that was also noted in some of your comments when asked what went well at the meetings. Board discussion, you indicated that you felt that the board members have an adequate opportunity to discuss and understand the impact of the decisions before taking action. So instead of rushing into a decision, you have time to do that. A real highlight here, with 100% of the board members indicating this is fully achieved, was about modeling mutual respect, effective interpersonal communication, and professional behavior. It was also reflected in the comments with specific reference to President Howry's leadership in modeling that respect amongst the board members. And the last area of strength was just comments about how the board members always come prepared, ready to discuss the items on the agenda, kind of doing your homework between the meetings. Some areas of growth, and the way I identified that was if at least 20% indicated that it was partially achieved. So know that these are relative areas of growth, certainly not areas of concern. They're still ranked very positively by the board members. But my job is to, share areas where you might be able to improve as well. The first one being about the board recognizing others, and that includes students, staff, or community members for an achievement at each of these meetings. And one of the things that I know, I was thinking about some potential ideas, and I'm sure you have some too that we can share as well. One of the things I was thinking of was I share recognitions at each board meeting. That certainly would be a time if you had some recognitions specifically underneath that topic to share. It is already on the agenda. Under my report, you certainly could share those things. The next one being the board debating on operational administrative concerns. So there was some sense that at times the board members debate on sort of non-critical details of issues that are really administrative, and that's certainly something that we can all monitor more closely when we feel like that conversation is drifting into operational issues, that maybe that's something we could address and say, you know what, I think this is more of an operational administrative issue that we can trust them to take care of. A big highlight of area of concern was the length of meetings. And so the idea of just the length total being a little bit long, and some ideas that really came from your comments were about, redirecting the discussion back to the topic. We all have a responsibility for that, possibly shortening our comments at times. I'm guilty of that as well. Recognizing when a discussion is no longer productive and moving on, and kind of tabling it there, saying, you know what, we've talked about this for a while. It seems like we don't have consensus. Let's bring it back at a future meeting. Shortening the number of topics on the agenda. We tend to have very ambitious agendas. Identifying an observer. That's what some boards do that. And certainly we have that in our meetings here as a district, where an observer might just kind of watch for that and try to keep us on topic. And something that actually came out of a conversation I had with Lauren Arango this afternoon was about maybe providing an estimated time frame for each of the topics. It's not to say that we're limited to that. Certainly we wouldn't, want anybody to count on us moving on at that exact time, but I think it could provide a little guideline for us to pace
That's worked pretty well,
ourselves.
and we do that in Preserve, right?
We do.
So,
We do.
And granted, we're not always to the minute, but it at least reminds us that we have more to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good idea.
And one of the things you can do too, kind of tying that into some of the other ideas for growth, would be you could have someone who's kind of watching that time and could say, just want to acknowledge we're kind of at the end of the time we had scheduled, but we're welcome to continue, but just a time check would be another idea. And then there was a comment as well about the board minutes and wanting to make sure, I think the sense of the board is just wanting to be very transparent to the public about how we make decisions. And one of the things that somebody had suggested was really promoting the recording of the minutes in our communication with families. So we're communicating with them on a regular basis. We could include a link to the recording as a way to just kind of highlight that for them so that they could actually see it. Because I think no matter what is in the minutes, seeing it is gonna be the most powerful way to show the depth of the conversations. So that's what I wanted to share with you, but, you're welcome to ask questions or your own suggestions, or maybe something jumped out to you that you wanted to comment on.
Well, I think the board minutes, I think staff, or the board knows where I come from. The minutes almost parallel the agenda that comes out, except for the board vote. The public has no idea unless they're watching what the rich discussion was about, the pros and cons for the decision. So, and when I take a look at other school districts, they provide more meat to their minutes.
They do?
Yeah. Even if it's just another, 2 or 3 sentences. But I will always be an advocate of less is not more in this case, more is more when it comes to recording facts and a little discussion in the minutes. Is it something I can live with? Certainly. I've lived this long, so.
I get it. Obviously, the more detail, the better. But then you have to wait time, the time it takes to do it. And I've always found it very difficult to be a productive, participant in discussions and such while you're trying to take notes at the same time. There are people, I'm sure, that can do it really well, but I just have never been able to do it. If someone were really interested in specifics, they can find the specifics elsewhere, can't they? Aren't these meetings, can't they listen to them, or they can go out on YouTube and watch them?
And that's what you talked about.
Yes, and promoting that.
Yeah.
A couple things is, we did Angie conducted a review and pulled some minutes from some other districts, which we looked at, and we have made some kind of minor modifications to that. The challenge that you have is you want the minutes to be as factual as possible. They're an official record, and when you start summarizing people's perspective, opinions, that's where you can get into legal issues where you'd have to almost quote what everybody said and let that stand on its own, versus somebody has concerns about this, they may say, well, that's not really how I saw it. And that's the concern, I think, is wanting to make sure to represent your words as accurate as possible, but there's some subjectivity when summarizing those in an official government public document. That's the challenge, right?
And I understand that.
Yeah.
I tend to agree with you. I answered fully achieved, I think, on this one. Only because our final motions are reflected as a clear record of our board decisions. It's those discussions that don't. And as a parent, and I'm even on the board, I find it very difficult to find this information, when I'm looking for it. And so I do that, getting the recording out there, I get caught in the middle between what you're saying, because I wouldn't want something that I was trying to convey to be misconstrued in the minutes, but I think it's important for the community to see what we're actually discussing, so, yeah.
Have we had community members complain about it?
Not that I'm aware of.
Aaron?
Not to me.
Yeah, that's the only reason I think in some ways I agree with what you just said. I think if they really want to find out, they can come to Aaron, they can probably talk to even us, and we could direct them to where they need to go. I just, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I don't know.
I think I would push back on that a little bit, just to say that if it were easier to get the information, that we might get more engagement.
When you say get the information, do you mean like, they can find a recording of the meeting at any time. So is it like just what Tom was talking about, kind of what the vote was, and maybe a brief discussion, or like the time in the minutes essentially of the
No.
recording so they can watch it?
Oh, that's interesting, actually.
Do a
An interesting
table,
thought.
like a table of contents.
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah.
That is interesting.
Because then at
Yes.
least they could just say, oh, I want to know more about
Yeah.
that, and then they could find it. Because if you want to know that much, I feel like.
Does the village do that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think,
They don't?
The feedback that I get from, I mean, it's my friends, you know, is that like all of it's just difficult to find, whether it's the minutes or the agendas or links to the meetings or, you know, like you have to look pretty deeply to find it. And so that's why I feel like, well, maybe we just have a link to it in the communications that go out so people can easily find it. But I really like that idea.
Easy enough,
Yeah,
Angie?
we could do that.
I was gonna say through the app, if you, any community member can sign up for, can download the app, and it would, excuse me.
This is not on. Any community members who do download our McFarland School District app, automatically for the meetings, like, I think it was yesterday, I got a notice that the, upcoming events, school board meeting is scheduled for, Monday at 7 o'clock, and then today at about, 6 o'clock, I did receive another text, or notification saying that, here's the link to view the meeting tonight that starts at, at this location on YouTube, so I get a link right directly there.
Oh, that's
So,
interesting. I don't know.
Any community members can download that McFarland School District app, and it's very helpful if you're a parent in the district.
Yeah. I get those notifications. I'm gonna have to, maybe I don't have it turned on for something. But that's it, yeah. Great, thank you.
Anything else?
The only other thing about the length of the meetings, historically speaking, the meetings are short compared to what they used to be. If we are going to allocate time here, where do we allocate time for our discussions? This is the only format that we can do that. And I just hate to see us tighten that up even more so. Because it's all already sort of a quick meeting, compact, which is good. But I wouldn't want time limits to cut our discussion off either. And if we put them in the parking lot or bring them back, we never bring them back. We don't have time to bring them back, you know?
Right.
That's a good point, though.
No, I agree.
So,
I agree.
I mean, I am cognizant of how long the meetings are going, and like Tom says, historically, they were longer, for sure.
by hours.
Sometimes, sometimes. Okay, moving on.
Yeah.
District Administrator's Report, Mr. Tarnitz, sir?
Hello. Good to see everyone.
Always, always good to see
Switching into
everyone.
that mode. Yes, so some things I wanted to highlight going around in the district. A couple of safety-related trainings that I want to make sure the board's aware of. So last week, we had a threat assessment training that involved several key district staff members, and we actually had a really sizable group from WEVA that attended as well. And the purpose of that is to train us on how we assess any threat that we may receive from students or other adults. And so this is something we've been trained in for many, many years, but this was a more in-depth training than I think we've had before. And I'm just really grateful for our trainers. It was largely led by Angie Brunette, Student Services Coordinator, and Zach Springer, high school social worker, under the coordination of Lauren Arango. Just was really exciting to see, a partnership with WEVA, which was an interesting thing, but also just the level of expertise and knowledge that we have within the district about assessing threats. And we've also started we'll be starting a new documentation system for threat assessments, which is going to really help us be a little more efficient and organized. But these are things that are conducted fairly often with any time. Somebody might be angry and say something, or someone hears something and they're not sure. We just assess everything, and we have a really well-researched protocol that is used nationally that guides our work for that.
Is that across all 4 buildings?
Yes.
Yes, 4K is also included, isn't
Yep.
it?
Yeah, we're really, it's one of the things that I think we've been out in front of for many, many years. But I just thought I'd highlight that.
Aaron, is this the first year that WEVA has been The participant?
Yes.
You want to explain why they're coming in now?
I can't say why they weren't there before,
Mhm.
but I can say why they're there now.
Yeah, they have the
Because
good
they,
information.
they do also receive threats
Mm-hmm.
from things from, that adults or students may say that they become aware of, and they want to be able to assess the level of threat. It's important to note too with this that it's not like we can't predict the future, but it's meant to manage and to determine what actions need to take in order to keep people safe, when to involve the police, those kind of things.
I think in addition to that, as Weaver brings people together, like in September, they have, I don't know, 12, 14 picnics the same day across the state. And things could happen there.
Certainly.
When they bring students together for student assessments, that's another potential area.
Yeah, they're
And
in person
Connect
for
now
their
up in Green Bay.
assessments. Yeah.
Rather than
It
be
may be
outside.
the first time student and any sort of staff from WEVA meet face-to-face.
Well, even graduation.
And that
You
can be
know,
difficult. Student assessment could be difficult.
Mhm.
Certainly. We also today just had another safety training. So the primary focus of the training today was on reunification. So say for some reason a school building is determined not to be safe, we would evacuate the students to a location and then reunite them with their families. And so we partnered with Dane County Emergency Management Services, the Office of School Safety, our police department, village staff, and school staff, and a wide variety of school staff. We actually practiced. We ran some practice reunifications. So I was able to be a school staff member and also be a student and a parent. Successfully reunited with my parent, Greg Nelson. So it was just a really good day, and I think I'm so grateful to Jeff Mahoney and Joel Zietzma for coordinating that event. And the partnership that we have with our police department and the village, and then of course those other agencies is just really important and powerful.
Do we ever evaluate the potential need for a second resource officer?
That has never come up in my conversations. I think the one thing we have done is committed to having a school resource officer, whereas some other districts had eliminated those positions several years ago.
And some have brought them back since.
Yes.
Yeah.
We do use other officers from time to time and have found them to be wonderful and very helpful with our students.
Craig, I can answer that also. During my first term on the board, I'm the one that brought it up. Do we need one for the middle school? But that was very short-lived. So
Yeah.
It has
But
been
it's worth a
discussed just on
discussion.
the surface. but
Yeah.
That's certainly something that, we can continue to monitor at this point. I don't know that there is, another significant need.
Yeah.
We've always had a great rapport with the village in terms of our resource, we've been very, very fortunate with our resource officers as well.
Yes. Yep, the village does an excellent job.
Yep.
Also wanted to highlight, our Family Equity Council has had 5 meetings now. The last 2, our new Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Coordinator, Brittany Brazel, has facilitated, and just really great conversations, excellent feedback that I can take right back to the administrative team. The last 2 meetings, we've been focused on breaking down our definition of educational equity and talking about what does access look like, what does rigor look like from a parent perspective, and how well we're doing those things. So excited to see that continue. Really great attendance. We have, typically 15, sometimes 20 people coming to these. We meet twice a month.
I would leave it to you to deem what time is appropriate, but I would certainly look forward to having Brittany come in and talk to the board about what's up. How our initiatives are moving along and how she sees her first 60 days or, something like that. I'm very interested in what's going on.
Yes, yeah, she's been spending a lot of time getting to meet people, and that's a lot of what she's doing right
Mhm.
now, is getting to know staff and students and families. So, off to a good start. And also wanted to acknowledge, this time of year is a busy time of year in the district office. So we welcome auditors here for 3 days. Now, this is much broader than a 3-day experience. This work really starts in May, when the business office begins collecting all the materials that the auditors will need. And they examine kind of our programs, they look at, our financials, and really provide ideas on how we can improve. Of course, our business services staff take this very seriously, and they take their jobs very seriously. So there's very little for them to tell us, because we do such a great job. But a special thanks to Carrie Roberts, who's really leads this, and it's intense, and they do a very thorough job. So thank you to Carrie, and of course, Jeff.
I think each of us receives that report, and boy, historically, I've been here many years, and I don't know how anyone could do a better job than our group, led by Jeff. I mean, there's never been any significant issue that we're aware of. Do a great job.
I would certainly second that.
It's really, really wonderful. Okay, those are my recognitions. Does anybody have any other recognitions they'd like to share before I move into the slideshow?
Yeah, I'd like to comment about your welcome back letter.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Are you going to say something good? It's recognition.
It's the best I've ever, it was wonderful.
Okay.
I really enjoyed it. I love the video about the poor guy trying to say
Yeah.
interruption.
Yeah.
And I just want to commend you on your commitments that you make
Oh, thank
to
you.
the staff. I just go like, holy cow. So anyway, I
Made me
read
sm-
that to my wife, and she enjoyed it. She loved that letter.
Made me smile.
Very good.
Yeah.
It was a good start to the day.
I'd like to acknowledge two folks. One is a former student, graduated a year ago. He was in the autistic program here, second year of college, doing a great job. Spoke with his mother over the weekend. So compliments to the staff here.
Wonderful.
It's nice to see, not the end product, but how students transition.
Right,
from their
after.
From McFarland schools to upper education, be it the 4-year colleges or the 2-year technical schools. And then I got a copy of Greg Nelson's back-to-school letter. That was the most in-depth, comprehensive letter I've
Right?
received. It answered any
Yes, it was.
question that anyone would have had.
Right.
It
Because you
was
know they have questions.
very well done.
Yeah, agreed.
Oh,
They shouldn't have many now.
No, they should not, but there will be questions, I'm sure.
there always are.
Yes.
Well, and the hard part about, our jobs is not everybody reads everything. I don't know if you knew that. Especially when they're in depth. So just a couple quick photos to share with you. We've talked about Camp Kindergarten. We've shown some pictures previously, but we're continuing to show that. Just really those great first impressions of going to school there. Our school garden, which is right out here, if you want a brief tour, I can show that to you. And students come and tend to that all summer long. I can't tell you anything about any of the plants. Not a strength,
Purple coneflowers.
but they're there.
That's true.
Well, they look like tomatoes to me, that one
Yeah.
picture.
There you go,
Just
tomatoes.
because the caged.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, they actually have
Right
tomatoes on there.
Yvonne?
So our high school building leadership team met. I remember telling you about that and complimenting. All of our 4 buildings have had their building leadership teams now, but this is the high school one, and I just think it was exciting for them to take the time to have this picture and pose for this picture with our new administrative team, and just heard wonderful things about it, as well as the other buildings. A lot of hard work on those days. Whew, it's intense. So that was great. And we were able to serve ice cream at Nelson's. They had an event for families, and and students to come and find out about their bus routes and get to drive a bus if you wanted to. And so we were able to go out there and serve ice cream, which was an awful lot of fun. And so
Did you
can
drive the
see-
bus?
I did not drive the bus. I felt a little nervous and,
As I would as well.
yeah, maybe I need a private lesson, I think.
Did they have a good turnout, Aaron?
They did.
Good.
They really did. I didn't know what to expect, but, you know, and I don't have numbers. I was there for probably an hour and a half. But it was really well attended. Fair amount of Monona Grove families and McFarland families. It was nice, was able to kind of connect with some of the administrators from
Sure.
Monona Grove. But these are ours. So you can see Dana Shamer is on the left. So that's one of our new high school associate principals, and Jamie Thomas, and our new high school principal, Brett Jacobson, there. And I think I think this is Mackinac Island Fudge here.
Looks like Brett's been-
And then this was, it had some, I can't remember the name of it,
Digging
but it
in
had some
chocolate.
caramel in it. It was very good. I might have had some when I was done. And summer orchestra rehearsals, we have lessons all summer for band and orchestra, and here's the summer orchestra rehearsals. Love this picture. It's just wonderful to have the students in and playing music together again.
I think orchestra was the very first initiative that I took on as a first-year school board member. I think there was like 6 kids, maybe 4th graders, something like that.
Yeah.
So to see the growth that's happened in that orchestra program is super rewarding.
That was my dad's dream when he moved with us.
Oh, really?
You know,
Yeah, many years, and
We're doing it
special
now.
thanks to Leanna Hershey for her leadership. Some upcoming events, we have, tomorrow there'll be a training with Natural Circles of Support for our equity leaders, so excited about that day. Of course, a reminder to the board, at 6 o'clock right here, we will have our work session, also known as a retreat, to the same room that you're in on Wednesday. And then Thursday morning is the welcome for new staff.
And is that at 8 o'clock?
Yes,
I'm just being
but you come
sure.
early if you want to
Yeah.
mingle and
Yeah,
get some
okay.
coffee and coffee cakes sometimes and things.
How many do we have? How many new staff?
I don't have that memorized. I'm not sure.
Ish.
We have a wonderful group of new staff.
I was gonna say.
Wow.
How many?
20, which includes 2 who are moving from Wabisa to CES.
Okay, so don't really count.
Fantastic.
Where is it?
Oh, it's at the multipurpose room at Wabisa.
Okay.
Sorry, I haven't communicated that to you.
Totally would have showed up at the wrong place.
Thank you, sorry.
No, that's really important.
Yes, it's at Wabisa Intermediate School. Yep, it's a wonderful day, well-planned. Thank you to Melissa for all that coordination, excited to get it going. They've been sharing videos of themselves. I was just looking at some on that Canvas course that they take. And it's really, really wonderful group of people, many of whom have come from other districts. Thank you. Freshman orientation is coming up on the 28th. Of course, next Tuesday is a welcome back event in the morning, and it's going to be interesting. And then we have 4K sneak a peek on the 29th and the 30th, followed by on the 31st is the welcome back. So it used to be supply drop-off, and now we're calling it welcome back night for K-8. And then the 30th and the 31st are also photo days, so 10 to 7, people will be getting their pictures taken right here at the high school. And then we move into September, which is Suicide Prevention Month. We, of course, don't have school on the 4th and then start school. Our first day is on the 5th. But note that the middle school is 6th grade only on that first day to give them a chance to get acclimated. So 7th and 8th graders do not start school until the 6th, and they'll be starting with 4K, also starts on the 6th. 9/11 Remembrance Day, obviously, on September 11th. The first day of early childhood is on the 12th. September 15th starts Hispanic Heritage Month, and Rosh Hashanah begins at sunset. And then we meet on September 18th. So we're going to get a lot of each other this week, but then a break. I don't know if that's a good word to use, because I know you like to be together.
We
So-
might get used to those once-a-month meetings, Aaron.
Yeah, that's right. That's an idea. Didn't come up. No, that's fine. There's no way we could do once-a-month meetings. So, and that concludes my report.
Well, thank you very much. Very informative, and you're right, there's a lot going on. Okay, so, action items. Action on the 2022-20,
Business manager report.
oh, business, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Sorry, Jeff.
Just like,
Length of meeting and all. Just
Sorry, Craig, sorry.
Slide that through
The
there.
pressure on you guys.
Mr. Mahoney, welcome.
How are you?
Should be good.
Great.
Should be good.
All right. Well, I have 3 reports, and I put them in one slide deck. So we will kind of go through this. We'll go to page 2 already. So we're going to talk about the 22-23 budget, 23-24, and I just wanted to also give you an update about the WMCF intermediate school projects that are kind of the big part of our capital improvement plans coming up. So, as Aaron, rattled off all the thank yous. Thank you to Aaron for also getting to spend some time with our auditors.
yeah.
Yes, again, special thank you to Carrie as our accountant in our district. That is one of her primary responsibilities, regardless of her and previously Patty Brettel used to conduct that many years ago as well. And Patty trained Carrie in her role. Carrie's been with us almost now 16 years. So we have a great team. Now, in addition to the business office, this audit, the field work, interrupts everybody else's lives here at the district office as well. Angie, Serena, Emily Broom, everybody. Sandra Sherry, who does all of the special education stuff. It is an intense, fun activity. We're fortunate that we've had Johnson Block for a number of years. They've been dropping districts, even some in Dane County, just saying, if you are not good at getting your audit stuff ready, we don't have the capacity to have you as clients. So they have been getting rid of clients, and the amount of auditors that are available for school audits has been diminishing. But the great news is not only do we get to go through the field work, which nowadays we upload over the last couple months, lots of documentation. It goes into a system that houses our documentation. But then we also start to get then some of the phone calls back, some email communications. Could you reflect on this? Stuff like that. The most important thing about the field work, and this does have something to do with the budget, is the fact that the AC 1507 report that goes to DPI here at the end of the month has to be also confirmed by our auditors. So our books and their field work has to really match. And that is very important because it is what determines what our official expenditures were last year and revenues as compared to the rest of the state, and that helps determine what our equalization, state aid. Another component of it is what slice of the pie do we have, and where are our spending in the primary, secondary, and tertiary levels of funding, which I'm not going to get into that because that's a nice 3-credit class. But this is, so all of this field work is really important. We are lucky that it's only about 3 days. If your other districts that are not as great in this, doing this activity, you usually are put earlier in July and you spend more time working through the kinks. So again, we had a great week. And we look forward to wrapping this up, and you'll have a final report in December. So we always live in about 3 fiscal years.
Just the stability that you get from using Johnson Block year after year is a major, well,
Yeah.
and the fact that you've been prepared every year, so.
And a unique thing about some recent GASB rules is that you cannot have any long-term contracts with auditors anymore. So we have, so that does give the auditors the ability to kind of say, yeah, we don't need you this year, we have plenty, but we have a great relationship with them, so I do feel like we'll have year-to-year contracts. So, and we do go out to market, kind of evaluate, are we in a good spot for where our costs are, and we still have the lowest that I can find, and Johnson Block is very respected in this field, so. So, next slide. So 22-23, what are the big takeaways? Our expense side, that's a lot easier to, manage budget, see where we're gonna be, actual expenses. And then this evening you have, and you can't read this probably very well, but you have, annually we do some restricted fund balances. So some monies that we were planning to spend that we did not, you designate and an action item later this evening. And this is typically for grants that we didn't spend all of the funds from. And those balances then carry over into the next fiscal year after those action items have been taken. We did have in Fund 80 and Fund 88, those are two areas, our community services funds, that we did have some revenues in excess of expenditures due to more facility rentals that we're designating some revenues so that we can take on some planned expenditures. It is that time to start updating and taking care of some things in the pool and the auditorium. So we are fortunate enough that, we had several outside groups that we were able to collect some facility revenues from, and now we're gonna start spending and doing some mechanical and equipment upgrades, so.
These scheduled, sort of preventative maintenance sort of things, I mean, these are pretty.
Well, the preventative maintenance and all of that has to come out of the general fund, buildings, grounds department. These are more equipment related that do benefit our students and our community, but, the wear and tear does start, mostly audio, video
Sure.
sort of things, so.
Jeff, what is Get Kids Ahead? Is that a
So it's
grant?
a DO, I'm not blanking, it's not a DOJ grant. I think it's Department of Health and Social Services grant.
Okay.
And it's a general grant. I think it came through ESSER funding, if I remember right, from the federal government. And I'm sure Aaron might correct me if I didn't remember the right agency, but it is funds that we can use for lots of activities.
Okay, that's helpful. And how about the transition incentive grant? What, you know what that one is?
Again, that one, I'm unclear. I know that comes through our student services department. So.
Because at first I thought transition of students from one level to the next, but that's
Nope.
something entirely different, okay.
So that would be a typical action item. These are presently with our auditors, as this is what they worked off of as of what we were going to present. And then we have to amend our budget for last year, 22-23, and that's where you also have an action item this evening on approving some budget changes. So I think when I look at this and what our auditors share with us, this is a lot of really, easy things that we can explain to our community, that all of our changes are really about grants, and that's typical. So,
I can tell you that the Get Kids Ahead
thank you.
grant is through the Department of Public Instruction, and it's something that Governor Evers set aside for school-based mental health services.
Okay.
And then that transition incentive grant is also through the legislature and DPI that's focused on people's incentivizing positive post-school outcomes for students with disabilities. So transition out of school into the workforce.
Thanks.
So just for clarity, because I can't read the Excel spreadsheet. So Fund 80 and Fund 88 are the two that the funds would be put forward to help with equipment changes and
Yeah.
then, or upgrades.
Yes.
And then Fund 10, what is happening with the Fund 10?
So Fund 10 is for each of those grants.
Okay, so those will stay with the
Yep,
student
programs, yep,
services or, okay.
yep. So that is an action item that you have later this evening. Next, so what did we do with revenues? Well, it was a great year with interest earnings. Last July, we were in like the 2.5%. Last July, 2.5% interest earnings. We're presently around 5% interest earnings on our balances. So, 341,000 more than budgeted. That's where interest rates were back in the late 90s and early 2000s.
Right.
Since the early 2000s, interest earnings have been anywhere between like 1 and 1.5%. So this is our first real big jump. Our fiscal year last year was about 70,000 of interest earnings. I had budgeted 91,000, and so this is going to be one-time revenue that would be part of our what's known as fund balance, which is used for cash, keeps our cash flow going, so we avoid cash flow borrowing. Other areas, WEVA, 453,000 more than budgeted. Again, I've been very conservative with that because it has jumped up and down over the years. However, it's been very consistent the last 2 years. This is the second year in a row. So we're counting on more, 1.4 million instead of 1 million in revenues for next year. So that's part of our stabilizing our budget for next year.
Do you suspect that that's possibly due to that massive jump in enrollment they had over the pandemic? They went from, I don't know, 2,000
Yeah, I mean,
students to double that.
we were up in the 5,000 mark. It's stabilized back down, but we've been able to trend it now 2 years. So I'm a little bit more confident to be relying on more than just 1 million. Now we're gonna rely on 1.4 million for next year of that to stabilize our district budget.
I trust, the conservative manner in which you've typically done these things, that's due to the fact that you've
So it
been
is becoming more,
manipulated.
yeah, it's becoming more stable, so, again, we will have extra revenue that's going into above and beyond expenditures, and this is one of the reasons of that more revenue than expenditures. And again, we also had another ESSER funding of a couple $100,000 that came through another agency last fall, so I guess that's why I put on that little bullet, one-time reserves for capital projects. That's where we've tried to move up some of our projects, take care of some of the larger ones, and you can kind of think WIS, and I'll get to the last slide on WBISA here in a moment.
Does our legislature reward our due diligence? Does it? Or is it
It's
just?
kind of an oxymoron when it comes to joint finance.
That's what I'm saying. I know I wanted to
I'd say
preface it
no.
with it's a dumb question, but.
No, it's not a dumb question.
Wow.
What they do is they really go after DPI to really clamp down on fund balances.
Yeah.
But, they've really started to back off of and understood that we have additional expenses if we can't have a fund balance to maintain cash flow.
Yeah.
Cash flow would have cost
Oh.
a program this year if we were back 10, 15 years ago, we would have spent that 80 to 150,000 on cash flow expenditures to balance ourselves out for about 4 weeks of time. So we've done well in the last, this is our 6th year we're not cash flow borrowing or having a line of credit.
It's been a while.
That's fantastic.
It is fantastic. I just,
And the legislature did finally do something really cool, which was they started to recognize that maybe they should give us the revenues in the same fiscal year. So they stopped doing that trick
Yeah.
one biennium ago.
Yeah.
So that was 22, 23. Obviously, we're not done with it because we haven't wrapped up the audit and you haven't seen an audit report, which comes in December. But we are in 23, 24, as Aaron was rattling off dates. If you were to go to, on this calendar, August 21st, I have budget and staffing updates. And then additionally, we have third Friday in September count, which is September 15th. And on the 18th, we'll do the annual notice for our hearing of our annual meeting and our budget hearing. And then we start to get a lot of the final information. But in the next couple slides, I have a few pieces of information that I think are really awesome. Staffing, wow, great job. I was looking at where we are with posted positions right now. We have one long-term sub-special education teacher out there posted. We have a couple postings for special ed EAs. We have one long-term sub for custodial position posted, one sub for food service. That's amazing. There are districts that are not in this position. So hats off to our administrators that jumped in early and went for postings early, and we tracked it well. There's always that need for school bus drivers. Again, Nelson's will fully operate our fleet, but that usually includes the fact that there'll be some of their mechanics, some of their administrators, some of their dispatch folks being in there until they're fully staffed. They are short, but they will operate the routes that they need for the start of the school year.
And school board members could volunteer.
School board members can actually now, per law, be hired.
That's what
Yes,
I
well
understand.
done.
I asked that last time, and I was told you had to volunteer for that position.
You do.
That's just a change.
But there again, you could also work for them because they are a different organization.
Yeah, they are.
So that's kind of where we're at staffing. Now, I talked about we have the third Friday coming up. We have equalized aid, equalized values. Enrollment, we're getting there. We're about 72 less people than I was expecting when I gave you an update in December of 2022. But some positive reflections out of that is, for 4K, we pay per student. So even if we're down a number, we have a revenue and expense that follows the number of children there. So we can kind of think like, oh, we're closer to 60. Again, the 4K in the kindergarten is really just following the trends of birth rates and housing market in McFarland School District. CEPS down a total of 10 from what we expected. Again, not earth-shaking when you think about if you average that over 3 grades, that's 3 per grade. Wabisa down about 16 than what we were expecting. The middle school, yeah,
Big class.
it's still a 182 in that, approaching 600 in that facility for this coming school year. Thankfully, we have that smaller 7th grade class. That's everybody's breath of fresh air. And then the high school, this number will change. Being down 24, that'll change because we will pick up some kids that might have changed in the last couple weeks.
Yep.
We do get a lot of movement at the high school.
Is that our first class of 200?
You just graduated, actually, a class of 200. And this will be,
Yeah?
should hold.
Jeff, what's the capacity of the middle school now?
Well, everything's really supposed to be set up for, at our 612, it's supposed to be about 200.
200, okay.
Our elementaries and our elementary's about 177, but we do have capacity for 9th and 10th classes per grade, but that certainly make, I don't know how Wabisa would do without having a cafeteria in a classroom if we really tipped really high. It's the smallest cafeteria as ever designed.
In the history of cafeteria.
Yeah, so again, enrollment-wise, we're not horrible, we're not great, but, you know, we'll be able to manage our budget, and those aren't the actuals yet.
And then just advocating for the youngest students, thank you for having 8 sessions of kindergarten this year, because I think the numbers will grow eventually, but our youngest learners really benefit from smaller class sizes if they
Yeah,
can.
and that's gonna be one of our challenges, because our real growth area, and if it continues, is really the 6th grade and the 9th grade.
Saw that.
And we have to be cognizant not to potentially open enrollment too much, because
Yeah.
we would be really, if these trends continue in 6th and 9th grade, we'd be putting ourselves over building capacities. So we do have to be cognizant of watching that, and we have been, it's just.
It's getting harder.
Some of these classes, we might have to do, like, you know, Monona each year, every once in a while, has a different class that they look and they say, you know, they're in the higher levels, we can open up. So maybe that 7th grade class, if it's not growing, we might need to open up there. I'm thinking that 4K class that's gonna be kindergarten the following year, that's probably a likely opening up some slots. So,
Time will tell.
Yeah, you don't
Yep.
have to decide today.
yes, you don't have to decide that, that's an actual action item in January.
That's pretty typical McFarland though, you know, over the last decade or so, it's been pretty, you know, within a handful of what you would predict pretty much across the
These-
board, and
these
it's been
4K
very, very slow and steady growth.
Yeah, I'm not doing really good at 4K in kindergarten, I'm having a difficult time picking off pregnancy levels. It's,
But what you do is still really good,
I appreciate that.
as far as estimating.
But, alrighty, 23-24 revenue, just a reminder, revenue cap minus state aid equals property tax, so, you know, some of that exciting property tax conversations coming up. We did, you know, this joint finance and the governor agreed, and we got $325 per student increase, so, you know, we're looking at about 500,000 more as estimated by DPI for our equalized aid, which means if you take revenue cap minus state aid, our property tax is gonna, you know, go up about 428,000. That's less than 3%. And our equalized value is creeping up pretty good, around 12%. I've been budgeting, I used a 6% estimate. What will be interesting is, and I get this data also in October, is how much of that is new property tax value that has come on, which then really tells us what the real story is for a homeowner that had their house the previous year to see what the property tax. I'm thinking that it's probably gonna be pretty flat for school purpose property taxes. And just a reminder again, we're using $3 million worth of one-time ESSER funds, which means if we didn't have $3 million worth of ESSER funds this year, we'd have a $3 million deficit, or we would have already passed a referendum because our community loves us and would support us. And when I'm running some early estimates, our mill rates for some potential referendums would likely be lower still than where we were a couple years ago. So I think we'll be able to share the story and why that happened and why we need to support again. So that's a coming thing. Expenses, again, we've kind of went through all of this. I'm just going to jump to the bottom one, which is, you know, if someone said, what will the first year of a referendum look like? It's probably about a $3.5 million referendum versus where we were a couple months ago, where we were thinking 4.2, 4.3, because
$325.
we got $325 per student more that we get next year as well. Next steps, third Friday count, September 18th, we'll do our annual meeting postings at our board meeting. October 1, we get the equalized values. I already mentioned about our 12% growth. October 15th, the final DPI 8 certification. October 23rd, just around the corner, an annual meeting. And then October, December is really that referendum planning for 24, 25 and future fiscal years as well. So that's 22, 23, 23, 24, and Wabisa. Where are we at? You haven't seen any shovels in the ground over there yet, but we are inching closer. We did have Plan Commission approved on 7/18. Permits are being pulled. Our MEP final plans being finalized. That's mechanical, electrical, plumbing plans. I have a meeting Wednesday on plumbing. We're doing some soft bids out there for some of those activities. And so the service road and the building should start in September. Phase 2, our playgrounds, both the school and the village. So our subcommittees will be starting in September. I'm meeting with the Wabisa staff, I think the 30th or 31st. I get to be in front of them to talk about the project and see who might be interested in joining us in some of that planning. The roof, we've went through our bid process. We're looking at between $250,000 to $550,000, so you can tell which companies have capacity. And again, the one that's $250,000 is a company we worked with before. So, but this is how far you really have to be out to commit to contractors nowadays. So we will probably be signing in the next month to have our roof done. And also, we got to start looking at the parking lot over there. So really, Wabisa is going to be a site that will be closed next summer.
When do you anticipate they'll start on the roof?
That would be June 9th.
As soon as they can.
As soon as school gets out next
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, the roof is actually going to be one of the fastest projects because with the one-layer non-ballasted roof we have over there, we did the core samples a couple weeks ago. The insulation's looking great. So we can actually do a poured-on roof on top. So that's great for two reasons. One, it goes faster. Two, it just encapsulates what we already have there. And three, we're not filling a landfill full of insulation. So that's a win. And then our parking lots did have a little bit of Band-Aid approach taking care of it this summer at Wabisa, but it's in need of a full redo. Otherwise, we might have sinkholes too. But we won't use that word in this village.
No. How does that impact summer school? for
Summer
next year?
school will be at CEPS next year.
Cool,
And that department's
Great
already aware of
question.
that.
cool.
So-
And the playgrounds are now, I know it's accessible because he showed us the plans
Yeah.
a few weeks ago, so that'll be a great addition.
You might have, I know it's not Wabisa, you might have noticed that we've been digging up a little bit of property between Exchange Street and the pool PAC entrance. We were able to secure Speedway, which is doing the Paulson Road project, to jump ahead 1 year and get us going with what should have been done during the referendum. Now, they're just a little bit ahead. We were expecting them in October. But yes, the sidewalk will be poured this week. However, just a reminder, it is a pedestrian path and it will not connect all the way to the street because the infrastructure that happens with the village's full Exchange Street project next summer will then also have new sidewalk on that side, so that'll connect. There'll also be crossing walk area. So I'm glad we're ahead, but people are gonna go, well, why didn't they connect it to the street? Well, because we would have spent $5,000 that we didn't need to.
Right.
And it would have been wrong, and it wouldn't go to a safer crossing spot, so.
How is that
Awesome.
Exchange Street project going to impact our entry there?
Well, it's gonna be a fabulous project because it's water, sewer, utilities, everything, sidewalks
Again.
both sides. It's gonna start next April, and it'll start down at that wonderful intersection of Exchange and Johnson.
Yeah.
Not that that ever impacts any of the community in the morning or afternoon. And it will go all the way down to the bridge.
I'm
So,
sure.
so it will be a April through September project into those months.
gonna be
So it
rough.
will, yeah, it'll impact, you know, it's being very impactful on the neighbors along there because it is sidewalks both sides. It'll really look really different because there's a lot of trees that'll be coming down, I guess. And,
Yep.
but
Lots of trees.
it is a major corridor for the village, and so similar to the others, it'll have bike lanes and safer crossing areas. So they've been in constant contact with us.
It'll be great when it's over.
Yeah.
It will.
Any consideration of having a railing along that new sidewalk from Exchange down to the high school? Because that is a slope.
Yep, so it
In the
is,
winter, it
it's
could be
ADA
slippery.
sloped for,
Okay.
so it's not anything, we couldn't do anything but ADA,
Mhm.
so it should be fine.
Will it
and
have a rail though?
It will not,
Because I think that's a problem.
okay.
Because
So
someone that
we would
uses
not be
that-
able to engineer that into it.
I just think it might come back to haunt us. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, I guess. It'll be
It's a
better.
very difficult and tight area.
Yeah, I understand
Yeah.
that.
Which side is it on?
So it's on the northeast side of it.
Whenever anybody says northeast, let me think about that.
You're going down the right side.
Yeah. Yeah, we will be posting it in, as pedestrian only with signs. It is also not, that entrance is not open. The pool PAC, none of those doors are open for students. We will get students and community users that will use it. We also have, on the front and back side of it, we'll have also the rumble. Our engineers recommended the rumble to try to keep people from considering it as a skateboard park. You know, we have lots of areas that certainly are entertaining, but
Mhm.
It'll be great when it's done.
Yeah, I think you said that.
but thank you for,
Yeah, but again, let's keep in mind all the stakeholders that may be using that. You know, from the young to the old.
Yeah?
So,
duly noted. That is my 3 reports.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Any comments, questions?
great report.
That's
And I
all
like the way
right.
you did the
Yeah.
slides here also.
Kudos.
Helpful.
All right.
Thanks.
Okay, action items. Action on 2022-2023 budget changes. The administration is recommending approval of the attached budget changes for the 2022-2023 school year. If you are in favor, I would look for a motion.
I move to approve the attached budget changes for the 2022-2023 school year.
Thank you, Kate. Do I have a second?
I can second that.
Megan, thank you. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Next is action on designation of fund balance for the 2023-2024 school year. 2022-23 carryover. This is an annual procedure to carry over funds. If you are in favor, I would look for a motion.
I'll move to accept the administrative recommendation to designate certain 2022-23 unused funds to restricted fund balance for the 2023-24 school year as is included in the attachment.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Second?
I'll second.
Kate, discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And Action on first reading of policies. 5200, attendance. 5410, promotion, placement, and retention. 5517, search and seizure. 7440, facility security. 7544, use of social media. 8800, religious activities and observances. 8802, patriotic activities and observances. Administration recommends approval of the first reading of these policies. If you're in favor, I would look for a motion.
Just a note, that 5517 is no longer to be reviewed tonight. We're taking that off
And we
the
pulled that
table.
out.
Yep.
And it's actually 5571, I think. I think
Yeah,
it's,
we're taking both
Both
of
of
them
them
off.
off, yeah.
Yep. So we'll bring those up for first reading at the September meeting.
Okay,
Okay.
do I have a motion?
I move to approve the first reading of policies 5200, 5410, 7440, 7544, 8800, and 8802 as recommended by administration.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I can second that.
Megan? Discussion?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I have a, before we start discussion, can we go policy by policy?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Okay.
Kate, you made the motion, right? And Megan, you seconded?
Yes.
Okay.
The first one, 5200, attendance. On page 1 of 5, under school attendance officer. It would be interesting, I'd be interested in knowing what the district data is regarding excused absences, the number. And I don't need it tonight, but just sometime if it's a whole lot or a few. Also, under excused absences, are we still required to send out a letter after 10 days of absences?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Is that historical? That's how
It
we've
was,
done
it has been for a few years, yeah.
Okay.
I just didn't know if we're still doing it or not. Under H, high school equivalency, secured facilities, page 2 of 5. It's H. The board has excused a student from regular school attendance, et cetera. But is that just inherent in board policy, Aaron? Because we never get anything about that, do we?
Yeah, all of these are really right out of state statute in
Right.
terms of what,
So it's just given that the board is approving all that?
Yes.
Without any discussion? Okay.
right, we don't.
Okay, then J, election day. It was great to see students in our general elections at the
Yeah.
polls.
You bet.
But there's set criteria here, and who establishes if students are qualified or not qualified?
That's done at the high school office in terms
Oh,
of
okay,
whether or not
okay.
they would be excused.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
And then, under excused absences, near the bottom, definitions. Definition of a part of day for excused absence. You have this 20 minutes, if you're there before 20 minutes after discussion starts, it's considered an excused partial day. I'm confused by the way this is written. But at the same time, more importantly, maybe it's under the truancy, not the truancy, but if students are late, I don't know if I read it in the School News and View recently or at Education Week, they totaled up how many, if a student misses 5 minutes at the start of the school day, how that adds up 25 minutes a week, 100 minutes a month.
Yeah, I saw that
And by the time you get to high school, how many days
Oh, yeah.
and weeks? And I have a theory that young students that are late at the elementary level may continue that pattern. That's just my theory. I don't know if it's true or not. But if it is accurate, think of how much school the students have missed in their educational career. It'd just be interesting to have a doctoral student
Well, and you wonder,
pursue that.
yeah,
Yeah, so just to clarify
Yeah.
that, so under 20 minutes at the start of the day is considered tardy.
Tardy,
Once you
okay.
go over 20, it's considered an
Partial,
absence.
okay.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
when it starts. So we're starting to count it at the start of the day over 20, given that there's, some issues that impact students' ability to
And a
get
lot
there.
of the younger students rely on
But,
mom or dad to get him into
Correct.
school and.
Oh, absolutely. And the reason why I
therefore-
bring it up is from my experience here, but also serving as a crossing guard. I can see similar parents being late, you know? And it's just a trend. I don't know if we can do anything about it, you know? But-
and it's not to say there aren't consequences, it's
Yeah.
just for attendance for our state counting purposes.
Yeah, and I'm coming from the point of lost instructional time for
Yep.
the student. And then on page 4 or 5, referral to the district attorney. Does this happen in our district much, do you know?
No.
Okay,
No, in fact, there's really a movement from Department of Public Instruction to really reduce the number of referrals to the district attorney or citations through municipal court for attendance.
and why is that?
Because they really want districts to try everything they
Oh, I see.
can before using that as sort of a punishment.
Mhm.
So problem solving with families, there's a real push to do that. And I think, I can say from my experience that those types of actions rarely have a positive impact on the student.
I think having additional
Unfortunately.
student services staff this year on each campus, that should help as far as following up with some select families.
Certainly hope so.
And that's all I have on that policy.
So I had a couple questions also, and most of them were already answered, except for the referral to district attorney. When it said truancy cases, are they talking about all truancy or only the habitual ones?
Only habitual.
Okay.
Yep. Once you get over that 5 days in a semester.
Okay. And then in that last part of that, where it starts with note that paragraph A is not required, it's the very end of that first sentence where it says did not occur within 10 days. School days after the notice was sent. Do they mean that it did occur? That paragraph is really confusing to me.
Okay, so note that paragraph A is not required. So paragraph A is what says, met with the student's parent or guardian to discuss truancy. Is not required if the meeting between school personnel, the student, and the student's parent or guardian, which was requested in the notice to the parent, did not occur within, so to me, that says that if we do not provide the notice within, no, wait a second.
Now you understand my issue.
Which was requested. That is a very confusing sentence.
Because I think we also have to refer back to what the notice of habitual truancy is. And I think it refers back to paragraph C of the notice of habitual truancy, which is the section right above that. That the date for the meeting shall be within 5 school days after the date that the notice is sent. and that the date for the meeting may be extended for an additional 5 school days. So I think they're saying if, that, yeah, so I think what it's saying is that if that notice of truancy meeting didn't happen, then A is not required, and it feels like it should be saying that it, if it did occur, like it's, I think it's saying like if they've already met, they shouldn't be required to meet again.
That's how I read it, so I think it should say did occur within 10
Right?
school days, not did not occur.
That's what I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if this, because these were all Neola processed changes, right?
Yes, and
I think
that,
so.
that wasn't, you know,
That's
even
not
a
even a
proposed change, so.
Right.
So it's probably been.
So sometimes we do catch things like that.
Yeah, so
So
maybe if we can just get
I will
clarification.
double check on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate your attention to detail.
It's a good catch.
Thank you. The second one that I had was just an explanation, and I'm sorry if I could have maybe gotten this before the meeting, but for makeup course work and examinations under unexcused absences. Can you just explain that a little bit more, what they're trying to achieve there?
So, I mean, the idea is that, you know, students, they still have time, or they're allowed to make up coursework that they missed, even while in unexcused absence. So, you know, they can make up quarterly semester grading period examinations during the absence. So they still have that opportunity to make it up, basically is the sense of it.
Okay.
If makeup work has been assigned, it is the student's responsibility
Yeah.
to contact his
Contact.
teachers to determine what course, okay,
So they.
And that makes, I mean.
that makes sense.
That's a natural consequence, right?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I was confused on this one too, because it says that unexcused absence shall be permitted to make up any quarterly, blah, blah, blah. In the very next sentence, it says, credit may, but is not required to be given.
Mhm.
And so it seems,
That's a teacher's discretion?
Mhm.
but the sentence before says, they shall be permitted to make up any quarterly. I'm a little confused by that. I'm sure.
Maybe if their makeup work is substandard, then they
Well, and
don't,
I-
they don't necessarily have to give them credit.
Well, and it's
Yeah.
unexcused absence, that's, again, it's very interesting to me. I'm not quite sure what that.
Yeah, I guess I don't fully understand what exactly they're trying to prevent or encourage in terms of credit being given there.
Yeah.
What they're saying there is that students with unexcused absences should still be given the opportunity to complete examinations if the student is at risk of receiving no credit. So kind of, like if they're like if they don't take these, they're gonna fail. So then that's when they shall be, so required to be permitted to take them. And then I think the next paragraph is more about other work that they turn in. Credit may be, but is not required to be given for that completion of makeup work. And I see that makeup work as different between an examination.
Okay, I think maybe that's where I was getting
Yeah.
stuck, was what they were
Makeup
defining
work.
as makeup
Thanks.
work.
Yeah, examination
And-
versus makeup work.
You know, yeah, okay. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
That's all I have on that policy.
Do we actually have in each building an attendance officer?
It's typically the associate principal. Well, it is
Okay.
the associate principal in our case, but that's very common practice.
Yeah.
Is this the first time they said that you could actually, how was it, it was letter E, it had that funny little mark, and I was trying to remember what that was. It just said, student attending district through the open enrollment program, each notification shall also inform the parent. The student's open enrollment may be terminated if they're habitually truant. Is that, had we never done that before?
We've done that before.
We had, I was gonna
Yes,
say.
it's allowed by statute, and we've done it
Okay,
before.
okay,
I think they're just highlighting it in this section
Okay.
of the policy,
yeah.
but that is part of state statute.
I would have thought. Yeah.
We've done that,
Okay,
unfortunately, a few times.
yeah, yeah.
Anything else?
For that policy or other policies?
No, moving on.
Okay. Let's see, policy 5410, promotion, placement, and retention. On the first page, 1 of 6, under D, C talks about retention. D starts talking about acceleration, but there's no title to this paragraph here.
So you,
So I'm not, because it can't be one of the same, because one talks about retention, the other one talks about acceleration.
Where are you,
Did you
Tom?
say on page
Where are
2?
you?
Page 1 of 6, D, under
one
5410.
of 6, the policy.
Policies.
Are you looking at the administrative guidelines?
Oh, it is administrative guidelines. How did I get this?
I sent that to you just as a reference
Ah.
document, but that's not for the board to take action.
Okay. Well, there's an error there that's probably been
So
corrected.
you're just saying there's not a header there?
Yeah. There's no heading to D there.
And that's still on
I'm
1
not
of
sure where
6?
you
Yep.
are.
But that's part of the administrative guidelines, so we aren't
Oh, it's.
concerned about
It is,
that.
it's acceleration.
Yeah.
It's just way at the end. Is this the one you're talking about?
This is right here. D.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's way at the end is the heading.
It's.
Yeah, it's hard to see with the.
Oh, I see what
See
you
it?
did. Yeah. Okay, never
With the
mind.
edits, yeah.
Yeah.
Good attention to detail, though.
Yes, but that's,
That
that was just meant, because the policy reference administrative guidelines and not the,
Yes.
yeah, obviously the board doesn't take action on those, but I thought you
No.
might want to see those.
Yeah, it's
Just
good.
to see,
But
because it's the
I'll send you a couple
details.
other corrections, grammatical corrections.
That'd be great.
So,
For the, under the definitions for in the policy on page 1, it talks about promotion, placement, retention, and then acceleration.
Yep.
And I was just wondering when that specific language is used and seen by parents or caregivers. Because I feel like as a parent, I feel like I've heard the term placement a lot in terms of like, and I don't know if it's in this official capacity.
I'm sure that the context of when a parent typically hears the term placement, they're thinking of what class they're assigned to.
Right, okay.
yeah.
So there's kind of a couple uses
So-
of that word.
So, but these very specific definitions, are they gonna be in kind of more official communications that are outlined in the?
Yeah, only if
guidelines?
necessary, of course.
Okay, got it. I just wanted to clarify that.
Mm-hmm.
That was the only thing I had related to that policy.
Anything else on that policy? Moving on.
Let's see. Search and seizure, policy 5771.
That one we
That's
are
we're
not
not gonna
doing.
cover.
Oh, that's right.
That's one that we're not gonna do.
Right, not,
Thank
Okay.
you.
Then facility security, policy 7440. Under the second heading, public access to school facilities, it talks about visitors must identify themselves and the purpose of their visit. It's more than identifying themselves, it's providing ID, right?
I would assume.
Yeah, because I've had to go back to my car before to get my ID. So we might just want to include that in there.
Sorry, can you say where
A,
that was again?
last sentence,
Oh, okay.
Visitors must identify themselves and provide ID in the purpose of their visit. Because anyone can identify themselves.
Yeah, I see where you are.
And the similar on page 2 of 2 there, parents as visitors. Paragraph 3, again, we talk about check-in at the main office, the same fashion as a visitor. You might want to include with proper ID.
If it's gonna be the same.
Yeah. And that talks about, a visitor may be asked to leave by the building administrator. So will an administrator be on campus at all times during school hours, or should that be administrator or designee?
Or designee, I would think.
Now, it's easier having 2 administrators on each campus now versus just one.
Yeah, I like that, adding that.
I do
or
too. I
designee.
think that makes sense.
Yeah,
And that's 7440, right?
yes.
I'm keeping up. I got them. I brought a red pen this time so I could know the changes.
Anything else?
Let's see, next policy, use of social media. Policy 7544.
Right.
Here we are, okay.
We talk about platform safety and responsibility, social media. We talk about everything that the law mandates. But the question I have is, where are students introduced to the etiquette of social media, the downfalls, the dangers to social media? I mean, do we have regular curriculum for that, or
We
is
do.
that embedded in what we do now?
Yes, we have media literacy throughout the curriculum. I don't know when
Okay.
it starts off the top of my head.
Yeah, as
but
long as I
We do
know
have a
it's
scope
there.
and a
Yeah.
sequence for that.
Okay.
If I think about when I started seeing it from my kids' teachers, it was probably like 2nd or 3rd grade.
It's early.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then they have to
From-
sign agreements as well.
At the start of
and
each school year,
Yeah.
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 Yep.
The kids are getting younger and younger access to
yes, they are.
social media. Thanks.
The small grammatical, but I think we have switched in most of our policies to refer to the district administrator. And in the retention of public student records, in the 2nd paragraph on page 2, we refer to the superintendent.
Oh,
Yep.
So,
oh, there it is. It's like a little I Spy game. There it is.
there's Waldo.
Thank you for catching that.
Jeez.
That is me, you are, that is, wow. I am impressed.
Oh, thanks. It's one of my pet peeves when there's
I know.
like.
Yes,
that
you
we're
need parallel.
That's
consistent.
okay.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Next?
Yeah, under religious activities and observances,
Yeah.
Okay, that's,
policy 8800.
thank you.
I guess I just have to know what the rationale for striking that, the first part of the first paragraph.
It's so.
Was it somewhere else?
Yeah, in the explanation, it just references a case. So basically what happened was there was this case involving Bremerton. You may have heard about it. This is where a high school coach was praying on the field
Yes.
after the game.
Yep.
There was a very significant case in terms of the laws about free speech and, you know, the right for the Supreme Court determined that the district was wrong for, you know, disciplining the staff member for praying after the game in the field, and that they should be allowed to do so as a free expression. So that's where this comes out of. So that's, you know, these decisions of the Supreme Court, well, that has changed with the recent. So the change is meant to reflect that there can't be any policy that unlawfully restricts any person's free expression.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's the purpose of that. That case is to make sure it's aligned. a big question with that case, and we could talk about that for a long time, it's very interesting, but one of the big questions of that was, were they performing duties at the time after the game, while on the field in their school attire? And the Supreme Court said no. And then that was free expression.
Interesting.
Interesting.
How does separation of church and state fit in there then?
Well, I think that's probably it, like, if they're not performing their school duties, that would be considered separate,
I suppose.
sufficient
suppose.
separation.
Okay, with the same policy, third paragraph on the cover page there. I like this because I think, you know, when we had that high school student come and talk about, we've gone to the extreme now, you know, teachers and students can't talk about any religion, et cetera, et cetera. But this really spells it out. And I think this, at least this paragraph, you know, it would be beneficial if all staff was aware of this, that it's not off limits as long as it's in the curriculum. I think that would clarify a lot of the misperception out there.
Yeah,
I had
and
the
we're,
same thought.
we're, and just know we're in the process of a very comprehensive procedures for which holidays and recognitions we're going to acknowledge, how to acknowledge them at different levels. And-
Okay.
And Brittany Brazel is kind of leading that work. We met actually with Bushra, who was the student who came.
Yep.
Met with her again. I've met with her before, met with her again last week. So, yeah, really excited about that.
Just out of curiosity, how do you pick the,
That's what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
It's very difficult because, you know, one of the things I brought to Bushra, you know, which was acknowledged, was just recognize everything. Well, there's a lot of everything, so
You
that's what
can't.
we're trying
Yeah.
You
to,
just can't.
to determine. And we're
Could
gonna
be
have to
every
make
day.
some decisions, and I think, you know, some of it is what we know about our community, what things are celebrated here, and thinking of sort of the, I can't remember the term we were using, but kind of the key events from, you know, different religions. Instead of every single one, the one are more prominent or more important,
Okay.
and it, from an educational standpoint. Yeah, but I
don't
do
envy
agree.
that work.
Yes.
I don't envy that at all.
It's important, it's important. We have some
It is
models from
important.
other districts, and I
It's
think
difficult.
Tom's
is.
point is well taken. That's a well-written paragraph.
It is.
And it's long overdue, as far as the work that you guys are doing. Because we've gone, it appears from one extreme to the other.
Yes.
It's true.
And the last policy I have a question on is policy patriotic activities and observances. Policy 8802. The last paragraph there has been stricken. And what's the rationale for taking that out?
Yeah, I took that out, and we certainly could put it back in. I just didn't feel like it was necessary. You know, I would think, I don't need a policy to tell me that we may have a moment of silence, was kind of what I was thinking. It was unnecessary language, but I don't have a strong opinion. I don't,
I just think, since everything else seems to be so prescriptive, if it's not in policy, then I'm not going to touch it.
I could see that. It's kind of the opposite of the paragraph that we talked about in the religious activities and observances. Where that paragraph that clearly states what we can do,
Right.
this says what we can do, and people might not feel like they could do that if it wasn't
I
there.
guess if it does no harm to leave it in, I would
Yeah, I'm
suggest
fine
that we
either way.
leave it in.
Yeah, I kind of.
I don't have any.
Then that last sentence, no moment of silence shall be described with reference to religious symbolism or activity.
I don't have any strong feelings, but I don't
I don't
think there's
either.
any harm to leave it in either.
Not a battle I'd fight.
I'm fine. I can put it back in for the second reading.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, the only other comment I have is, I don't know if you've had a chance to read the school news, the August edition, but the last article talks about answering 4 important questions about board policy. And it is very worthwhile and very timely, as we talk about it, and we talk about, I mean, the article talks about why we have to make time to talk about board policy. Because I think Aaron put it in his minutes recently. Your board policy is our major function.
That's
And
why
this-
we're here.
And this sort of clarifies some of that, because I
That's
think
our-
sometimes we lose that.
That's our purpose.
Yeah. I think we lose that perspective sometimes.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tom.
We kind of get caught up in minutia sometimes and things that are more interesting.
Well, things are more interesting than policy.
You know? It's true. Anything else? Okay, I've got a motion from Kate and a second from Megan. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. I would look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Kate?
I'll second that.
Bruce? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at
7:30, exactly.
8:40.
Pretty good.
Mountain time.
Not bad.